Should I press it?
No, I'll press it. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. I hope everybody's doing well tonight, inshallah. Welcome to our program for tonight. We will tonight be commemorating the Wafat of our 11th Imam, Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salam, as well as remembering our Lady Masuma on her passing as well from a few days ago, inshallah. So to begin the program, just today's program, inshallah, will have a recitation of the Holy Quran by Ayan, and then we will have Dua Tawassul by Brother Basali, and then we'll have Mercia by Brother John, and then we'll have the Majlis, inshallah, after that, and we'll conclude with Matam and Ziyarat after that, inshallah. So without further ado, Ayan, if you are ready, let's recite one loud salawat, and then we can get started. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Hello, my name is Jan, and I think I'm gonna recite Surah An-Nas and the translation in English. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. Now I will be doing the translations. I seek refuge with Allah, the Lord of mankind, the King of mankind, the Allah, God of mankind, from the evil whisperers, devil who whispers evil in the hearts of the men, who withdraws from his whispering in one heart after one remembers, who whispers in the breasts of mankind, of jinns and men.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. MashaAllah. Good job, Ayan. You did so well. Good job. Thank you for reciting for us. Inshallah, you'll recite again for us too, okay?
Okay.
Good job. Thank you. Inshallah, we'll have Brother Basali, if you're ready, we'll continue with the Dua Tawassul. If you can give me 1 second, let me just share the screen, inshallah. And we can go from there.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma inni as'aluka wa atawajjahu ilayk binabiyyika nabiyyir rahmah Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Ya Abul Qasimi, Ya Rasulallah, Ya Imam al-Rahman, Ya Sayyidana wa Maulana. Inna tawajjahna واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباكر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها القاظم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النكي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وسي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله حاجة. يا ساداتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وأدتي ليوم فخري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا ساداتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالمهم من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين اللهم صل على محمد.
Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Ahsan Abasali, thank you so much, mashallah. Very well done. Ahsan.
Thank you.
We'll continue with the next segment of the program, inshallah. Brother John, if you're online, there you are. We'll do the Marsiya and then we'll go to the Majlis after you, inshallah.
Thank you, Jamil. Fatiha. रो के मादर ये करती है नौहा रो के मादर ये करती है नौहा हाय मारा हसन अस्करी को चल बसा मेरी गोदी का पाला हाय मारा हसन अस्करी को साल 29वां कैसा आया मेरे बच्चे को मुझसे छुड़ाया कर दिया टुकड़े है कलेजा कर दिया मेरा टुकड़े कलेजा हाय मारा हसन अस्करी को मेहदी कहते थे रो रो के मादर मेहदी कहते थे रो रो के मादर जहर से मारा है सितमगर मोतमद था नहीं हाय कैसा हाय मारा हसन अस्करी को हो कहाँ है मेरे लाल आओ हो कहाँ है मेरे लाल आओ अपनी बेवा को करती है दुखिया हाय मारा हसन अस्करी को रोके मादर ये करती थी नौहा हाय मारा हसन अस्करी को Fatiha. Just 2 bunts of Vidai Salam and then it should be done. Ay Noor Ain Fatima Zahra na jaiye hum bekasson ko chhod ke آغا نہ جائیے اے نور عین فاطمہ زہرا نہ جائیے مولا تمہارے آنے سے رونق گھروں میں تھی دن رات غم تمہارا کیا کرتے تھے سبھی مدت یہ 2 مہینوں کی ماتم میں کٹ گئی رونق کی جاں ہے آج اداسی برس رہی میں نور عین فاطمہ زہرا نہ جائیے مولا عزا کی بزم میں آتی تھی فاطمہ زحمت یہ 2 مہینے اٹھاتی تھی فاطمہ آنسو ہمارے ساتھ بہاتی تھی فاطمہ ہم کو دعائیں دے کے ہی جاتی تھی فاطمہ ہم بے قصوں کو چھوڑ کے آغا نہ جائیے مولا اب آپ اگلے برس آئیں گے یہاں جیتے ہیں رونے والے تو پھر تم کو پائیں گے ماتم کریں گے اور علم بھی اٹھائیں گے وعدہ کرو کہ آئیں گے اور سب کو لائیں گے اے نور عین فاطمہ زہرا نہ جائیے ہم بے قصوں کو چھوڑ کے آغا نہ جائیے در محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ
اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. Ahsan, John, thank you. As we remember Imam Hasan al-Askari, and we also bid farewell to this Ayam-e-Azha. Jazakallah, Hasan. We'll continue forward with the program, and inshallah we'll have the majlis for tonight. And for tonight, inshallah, we'll be listening to a live presentation from Vancouver, from the Az-Zahra Islamic Center with Sheikh Azhar Nasser. The majlis has already begun, but we'll start from the beginning when he started, inshallah. So, Bismillah. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد. صلى الله عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء، ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمن من لجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. قال تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وجعلناهم أئمة يهدون بأمرنا وأوحينا إليهم فعل الخيرات وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة وكانوا لنا عابدين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On the 8th of Dhul Qa'dah, on the 8th of Rabi'ul Awwal, we commemorate the tragic martyrdom of Al-Imam Abu Muhammad Al-Hasan ibn Ali al-Askari, our 11th Imam. When you look at the life of this Imam, of course, this night is a very heart-wrenching night, because on this night we send our condolences to the 12th Imam for the Shahada of his father. You know, my dear brothers and sisters, we all know that the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam had very difficult lives. Beginning with Amirul Mu'mineen, who saw tragedies and hardships that cannot be described. Amirul Mu'mineen himself, he speaks about the pain that he endured after the death of the Prophet. the tragedies that were poured upon the Ahlul Bayt. And the Imam, he has a statement where he gives you a sense of how he felt after the death of Rasulullah. He says, فَصَبَرْتُ وَفِي الْعَيْنِ قَذَى وَفِي الْحَلْقِ شَجَى. He says, I was patient after the death of the Prophet, while I felt as though there was a thorn in my eye. You know when you have a little speck of dust in your eye, you can't even function. You have to get it out. It's very painful. If there's a dust particle in your eye, Imam, he says, I felt as if there was a thorn in my eye after the death of Rasulullah and a bone in my throat. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hasan, Imam al-Hussein, and you go down the line, and Imam after Imam leaves this world tragically, either by the sword or by poison. And this shows you, brothers and sisters, how Muslims truly did not appreciate the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided. And hence the wisdom of the ghaibah. You have these luminaries, these individuals who are nothing but knowledge and wisdom and piety. Not only are they not valued, but they are targeted and they're brutally killed. When you look at Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, this Imam, salawatullahi alayhi, he spent the majority of his life under house arrest. You know, Imam al-Askari alayhi salam was truly gharib, because all of his other forefathers, they spent a significant amount of time in Medina. Many of them, they grew up in Medina. They enjoyed the city of Medina and the beautiful memories of the Ahlul Bayt in that sacred city. But Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, he was forced to leave Medina with his father, Imam al-Hadi, when Imam al-Askari was 2 years old. 2 years old, he leaves Medina and he settles with his father in Samarra. Samarra, my dear brothers and sisters, at that time, it was the capital of the Abbasid Empire. And to show you, to give you a sense as to how oppressive and how cruel the Abbasids were, one of the reasons why they moved the capital from Baghdad to Samarra is because they were worried about uprisings. And Samarra was a military compound. Samarra, the only thing that was there was the Khalifa and his army. And Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, from the age of 2, he finds himself surrounded by soldiers, surrounded by a military. His father passes away. He's martyred in the year 254 after the Hijrah. And by the way, Imam al-Askari alayhi salam lived only 28 lunar years. An extremely short life. The Imam alayhi salam, the conditions of his imamah were so severe that every Monday and Thursday he had to report to the government. He had to go in for questioning. Imagine, this is your life. From the age of 2, you see your father taken in week after week, imprisoned. And it was so severe, you know, some of the Shi'as would go and visit and they would stand at the side of the road because they know Monday and Thursday, Imam al-Askari is escorted by the police, by the military, from his house to the palace of the Khalifa. And this is the only time they get to see the Imam. Just the walk from the house to that government building for questioning. The Imam alayhi salam was so concerned. I mean, look at how the government cracked down on the Shi'as. Imam sent a written letter to the Shi'as that if you see me, do not say salam to me. Imagine, this is your Imam. You want to just say salam to the Imam. The Imam says, don't say salam to me, because if you say salam, you will be persecuted. The government will know that you have a relationship with me. In fact, do not even point at me. It was that severe. Imam alayhi salam spent virtually his entire adult life under house arrest. Now you may wonder, why was the Abbasid government so cruel? Why did they surveillance the Imam alayhi salam in a way that they didn't even do with his forefathers? The answer is very simple. The answer is related to the famous hadith of the Prophet about the 12 Imams or the 12 Caliphs. You see, there are some hadith that were forgotten. There are some hadith that were distorted. But the hadith of the Prophet where he says, after me there will be 12 caliphs, and all of them are from Quraysh, this hadith was mentioned by the Prophet on a number of occasions. And it was etched into the collective memory of the Muslims. It was so widely transmitted that the Abbasids could not remove it. It was already circulating. People had memorized it. And it was not a hadith that they could distort, because the application of the hadith, it doesn't apply to Umayyads. It doesn't apply to the Abbasids. The only family that this matches with is the family of the Prophet. And the Abbasids knew that number 12 will be the one who will fill the earth with justice after it was filled with injustice. So this house arrest and the cracking down and their surveilling of the Imam was all done to prevent the birth of the 12th. That's what it was all about. That we have to prevent, because even though these people are criminals, they still have this fear that what the Prophet said may come true. Just like Fir'aun. There was this paranoia that if Musa is born, I'm finished, and I will do everything to prevent that birth. And this is what they did. They separated the Imam alayhi salam from the Shi'as. They did not allow any communication. In fact, their objective was to prevent Imam al-Askari, to move him away from the densely populated Shia areas, keep him in Samarra, so he doesn't get married. One of the things that they wanted to achieve was sever the connection between the leader and the community. And the Imam alayhi salam very wisely created the most intricate system of wukala, whereby the Imam was able to communicate with the Shia through his representatives, and he had representatives in all of the Shia cities. And the way that they would communicate with him is that some of them would pretend to be vendors coming to Samarra, just like the first Na'ib. The first Na'ib was an oil seller. He would come selling oil, selling butter in Samarra, and he would slip a message to Imam al-Askari. And the Imam, because the Imam was not able to speak, he did not have a pulpit, the Imam would communicate through these written letters, and that's why the majority of the ahadith that we have from Imam al-Askari are written. Katab al-Imam al-Askari. So they wanted to separate the Imam from his Shi'as, because it's easier to fabricate and attribute false hadith to the Imam if he doesn't have contact with the Shia. It's easier to create false representatives of the Imam because the Imam is not coming out. So it's difficult for people to verify who's a real wakil of the Imam and who's not. But the Imam ﷺ was able to correspond through his letters. And that's why, brothers and sisters, when you look at the ways in which the Abbasids tried to keep the Imam from interacting with the outside world, one of their main tasks was to prevent him from getting married. And the Imam ﷺ didn't get married. Now you may say, Narjis. Narjis was a captive. We have the concept of what your right hand possesses. She was a slave girl. Many of our Imams were born from slave girls. Ismail was born from Hajar. Hajar was a slave girl. Hajar was not the wife of Ibrahim. So they thought that they had achieved their mission by isolating the Imam and not allowing the Imam, because they thought that for the Imam to give birth, to have the 12th, he surely must marry from the prominent Shia families that are in Iraq, that are in other places. But they never thought that the 12th Imam would be born from a slave girl. They didn't anticipate that. So when you look at the life of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, the Imam alayhi salam saved the Shia in a way that the Abbasids did not even know what was going on. They had no idea that the Imam had this intricate network of wukala. And the Imam alayhi salam had a strategic plan in place for the transition from the era where people have access to the Imams and to the ghaiba. One of the things that the Imam alayhi salam does, and by the way, we know that the Imam's father is Imam al-Hadi. His mother was a woman by the name of, she has a number of names, Sawsan is one of her names, Sulayl. This woman was so noble, so knowledgeable, so virtuous, that when the 12th Imam was born, Imam al-Askari alayhi salam told his mother, when Imam al-Mahdi was 4 years old, he said to her that I want you to take my son to Hajj. Go with him to Hajj. Why did the Imam do this? The Imam alayhi salam was grooming his mother for an important role that she would play during al-Ghaibatul Sughra. Because he wanted his mother to go to Mecca and interact with other Muslims, to understand what are the challenges of the Muslims today. Because during the minor occultation, the mother of Imam al-Askari would be an important reference point for the Shi'as who wanted to know and wanted to access the knowledge of the 12th Imam. There's an interesting narration that tells us that one of the senior scholars of the Shia of the time, he goes to Hamida, Sayyida Hamida, the sister of Imam al-Hadi. He goes to her, and this is at the beginning of the Ghaiba. He says to her that the Shias are confused. There's a lot of confusion. People don't know who their Imam is. We need answers to some religious questions. What should we do? Who should we talk to? Sayyida Hamida, she says, go and speak to the mother of Imam al-Askari. She will be, at least for a period, for a number of years, she will be the point person for those who want answers from Sahib al-Zaman. Now, the narrator, Ahmad ibn Ibrahim, who was a faqih, he was a scholar, he was taken aback by this. He said that When has it ever been the case that the entire Shia world was taking their knowledge from a woman? It was very shocking to him. Sayyida Hamida, she says there is precedent in the history of Tashayyu' for all of the Shias to take their knowledge from a woman. He said, when was this? She says to him, after the Shahada of Imam al-Hussein. After the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein, who was under strict surveillance? Imam al-Sajjad. Imam al-Sajjad, obviously, the government is going to watch him very closely. Why? Because he is the son of the man who revolted. So they're going to watch the Imam. So who did they used to ask their religious, fiqhi, aqaidi questions to? Sayyida Zainab. Sayyida Zainab was the reference point for the Shias for a number of years during the early period of Imam al-Sajjad's imamah. And likewise, the reference point for the Shia during the early years of the minor occultation is the mother of Imam al-Askari, salawatullahi alayhi. Allahumma salli ala. Imam al-Askari, my dear brothers and sisters, he showed signs of brilliance even when he was a young child. You know, there were some Shias who used to visit Samarra to see Imam al-Hadi, to meet, to verify who is the next Imam. Many of you are familiar with Bahlul. Bahlul was a companion of the 7th Imam, and he lived until the time of Imam al-Askari, at least his childhood. Bahlul enters Samarra. And this narration, by the way, is mentioned even by some Sunni ulama. They mention this incident, this interaction between Bahlul and Imam al-Askari. Bahlul says, I was walking in the streets of Samarra and there were some children playing. They were playing in the alleyways and I saw one child who was crying. The child who was crying was Imam al-Askari. He was only a few years old. The narration says, فَظَنَّ أَنَّهُ يَتَحَسَّرْ عَلَى مَا فِي أَيْدِيهِمْ. Bahlul thought that this young child is crying because he doesn't have the toys that the other kids have. So he comes to Imam al-Askari, who is a little boy. He says to him, أَشْتَرِي لَكَ مَا تَلْعَبُ بِهِ. Do you want me to buy you a toy? And this is where you see that the Imams, the children of Ahlul Bayt, especially the Imam, they're not like ordinary children. Bahlul offers to buy Imam al-Askari a toy. He says, are you crying because you want a toy? The Imam says to him, Ya qaleel al-aql, ma lil-la'ib khuliqna. Oh, the one with small intellect, we were not created to play. Bahlul still doesn't know who he's talking to now. He says, this is an unusually sharp child. So Bahlul says to this child, فَلِمَاذَا خُلِقْنَا? What have we been created for? He wanted to see what is this child going to say. The young boy says, لِلْعِلْمِ وَالْعِبَادَةِ. We were created to seek knowledge and to worship our Creator. So he says, what is your proof for this? Maybe this child is just repeating something that he heard. What is your proof for this? The child says, Allah says in the Quran, addressing humanity, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ. Allah says to humanity, do you think that you were created in vain and you shall not return to us? Bahlul is shocked. This young boy has wisdom. This young boy is unlike any child that I have ever seen. So then he says to the young boy, You seem to have wisdom. Give me some advice. And Imam al-Askari, he composes a few lines of poetry. You know, the Ahlul Bayt, they were not known as poets, but when Ahlul Bayt, when they recite poetry, the message penetrates to the hearts. He says, and imagine this is 4 or 5 years old. He says, أَرَى الدُّنْيَا تُجَهَّزُ بِانطِلَاقِ. He says, I see that the dunya is quickly departing. مُشَمَّرَةً عَلَى قَدَمٍ وَسَاقِ. Not only is it departing quickly, but it's as if it's a person that has rolled up its pants and its sleeves and it's ready to run fast. فَلَا الدُّنْيَا بِبَاقِيَةٍ لِحَيٍّ. The dunya does not remain for any living being. وَلَا حَيٌّ عَلَى الدُّنْيَا بِبَاقٍ. And no living being will remain upon this earth. كأن الموت والحدثان فيها إلى نفس الفتى فرسا سباقي. It's as if day and night are like a horse that's galloping, and beside that horse is death, galloping. This life is passing by very quickly. فَيَا مَغْرُورٌ بِالدُّنْيَا رُوَيْدًا. Oh, the one who is deceived by this dunya, slow down. Slow down. Take a moment. Do not be hasty. وَمِنْهَا خُذْ لِنَفْسِكَ بِالْوِثَاقِ. At least take from this dunya something that will save you in the hereafter. Bahlul is shocked. The narration says that Imam al-Askari fainted as he was reciting those lines of poetry. Overwhelmed by the heaviness of the words. The narration says, ثُمَّ خَرَّ الْحَسَنُ مَغْشِيًا عَلَيْهِ. The young boy fainted, regained consciousness. Bahlul said to this young boy, again, until now he doesn't know this is Imam al-Askari. He says, young boy, take it easy. He says, مَا نَزَلَ بِكَ. What is happening to you? You're a young boy and you have not committed a single sin. You're still a young boy. What are you worried about? Do you know what Imam al-Askari says? Are you ready to hear these heavy words from Imam al-Askari, who was a young boy at the time? Bahlul is saying that you're still small. What are you worried about? The Imam alayhi salam, he says, I always see that when my mother cooks, she gathers wood. She gathers big pieces of wood and small pieces of wood. And I notice that whenever she lights a fire, the small sticks burn first. And he says, وَإِنِّي أَخْشَى أَنْ أَكُونَ مِنْ صِغَارِ حَطَبِ جَهَنَّمَ. He says, I worry that I may be one of the small sticks that ignite Jahannam. Meaning, what is the Imam trying to say? The Imam played with those kids, but he wants to send a message that life is not a joke. Life is not all fun and games. There's a purpose. And don't make the excuse that I'm just a kid. I'm still young. What consequence do my actions have? No, your actions have consequences. The Imam alayhi salam, in this way, he would shake the hearts of the people. The Imam alayhi salam, he trained the Shia that when you don't have access to your Imam, seek our teachings from the ulama, from the scholars. The Imam alayhi salam, he used to say, Al-Amri wabnu, Uthman ibn Sa'id al-Amri and his son, he says, they are thiqatan, they are trustworthy, they are reliable. فَمَا أَدَّيَا إِلَيْكَ عَنِّي فَعَنِّي يُؤَدِّيَانِ. Whatever they convey to you, know that they are conveying from me. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt, they are the ones who created and established this institution of marji'iyya. You know, some people, they might have a problem with a certain scholar, with a certain wakil. Brothers and sisters, marji'iyya is not about an individual. We're not talking about individual. We're talking about a system that was established by the Imams of Ahlul Bayt to keep the Shi'as on the straight path during the ghaibah. You know, sometimes you have people, they have a bad experience with a scholar. You know, maybe they wanted to go see a marji', they wanted to have a meeting, and they were denied the meeting. Some of us, we think as if we are the most important people in the world, and it is the most urgent thing in the world for the marji' to meet with me. And if I don't get that meeting, what happens? We start to undermine scholars. We start to say that, you know, these maraji', I thought they had akhlaq, and little by little, what happens? We throw the entire institution of marji'iyya out the window because you had a bad experience. This is exactly like someone who goes to the doctor and the receptionist wasn't very nice. Is it rational for someone to say, you know what? To hell with all the doctors, I'm going to self-medicate from now on. This is nonsense, brothers and sisters. There are many people today who say that, why should we blindly follow maraji' and ulama? Islam is a religion of critical thinking. Why should we follow all of these ulama like sheep? In fact, this argument is not new. The same argument was made by someone to Imam al-Sadiq. The same idea of why should we listen to scholars? They're not ma'soom. We always hear this. The scholar's not ma'soom. Why should I listen to someone who's not ma'soom? Someone comes to Imam, and this is in the tafsir of Imam al-Askari, a tafsir attributed to Imam al-Askari. He mentions a narration where a man comes to Imam al-Sadiq. قال رجل للإمام الصادق. He says, oh Imam, doesn't Allah condemn the Jews in the Quran for blindly following their scholars? So why are we being asked to do the same? Why are we doing something that the previous religious communities, they were condemned for? And then he cites an ayah of the Quran, Surah At-Tawbah, verse 31. اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. The Jews, they took their rabbis and their scholars and the monks as gods besides Allah. So he's saying to the Imam that why should we blindly follow them like they're gods? Doesn't Allah condemn the Jews for doing this? And then another ayah is brought. Oh Imam, how about the other ayah in the Quran where the people who are in Jahannam, what did they say? How did you end up in Jahannam? Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 67. وَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا إِنَّا أَطَعْنَا سَادَتَنَا وَكُبَرَاءَنَا. Oh Allah, don't blame us. We ended up here because we followed our elders. We followed our masters. So he's saying to the Imam that I see ayat in the Quran where there seems to be a condemnation of this blind following of scholars. The Imam alayhi salam, he says there's a big difference between what we are asking you to do and what the Jews and the Christians used to do. The Imam alayhi salam, he says, Inna awam al-Yahud, the laymen among the Jews, قد عرفوا علماءهم بالكذب الصراح. The laymen among the Jews, they knew that their scholars were corrupt. They knew that they were crooked, they were liars. They knew, they used to bribe them to change divine laws. They knew they were corrupt. The Imam alayhi salam is saying that we're not asking you to follow any scholar. We're not asking you to just follow someone who has knowledge. Because many of these rabbis, they had a lot of knowledge of the Torah. The Imams, they said what? We are telling our Shi'as, and this is why the Imams, they spent a lot of time building scholars because they don't want the scholars of the Shia to be like the scholars of Bani Israel. There was a lot of tarbiyah that went into training these ulama. The Imams say, follow the scholars who have knowledge and taqwa. And this is why Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, in his famous statement, he gives us the guideline, he gives us the principle. What does he say? أما من كان من الفقهاء صائنا لنفسه. Follow those fuqaha who guard themselves, who are particular about their nafs. حافظا لدينه, who preserves his deen. مخالفا على هواه, who goes against his desires. This is who you should look for. Don't look for someone who is trying to bend the sharia to their desires. Follow someone who goes against their desires, who's far from dunya. Do you know, many of you follow Sayyid al-Sistani, and you should be proud of this. And we're proud of all of our maraji'. Do you know that your marji' does not even own the house that he lives in? Do you know that the saya that he's wearing is decades old? This is how they live. Very simple lives. مُخَالِفًا عَلَى هَوَى مُطِيعًا لِأَمْرِ مَوْلَاهِ. What comes first is obedience to Allah. You know, every Eid we have this argument. How come the maraji' don't give us a solution so we can celebrate it? The maraji' are going to follow what they believe corresponds to God's law, whether it makes us happy or not. This is actually a sign of their taqwa, that they're not going to do something just to appease the people. They will issue a fatwa that they believe will absolve them before Allah Azza wa Jal on the Day of Judgment. This should make us proud that we don't have ulama who are just changing their fatwa every day because some people are unhappy. The ones who go against their hawa. And then the Imam says what? فَلِلْعَوَامِ أَن يُقَلِّدُوا. The general Shia population, they are permitted to follow these types of scholars who have deep knowledge, who have taqwa, who go against their desires, who are obedient to Allah. You are permitted to follow them. Meaning you're not obligated, because if you want, you can go become a scholar. Some people, they ask, Shaykh, why do I have to do taqleed? I say, you don't have to do taqleed. You have an option. Go to the Hawza for 50 years and become a scholar. So you should thank those ulama who have dedicated their lives so you don't have to go for 40, 50, 60 years and study. Same thing, we have the same issue when it comes to khums. We give our money to the marji' and we say, we want you to tell us how you spend the khums. It's not your money. It's not your money. It's the money of Sahib al-Zaman. It's not that you're giving your money and you want to know how your money is being spent. You should kiss the hand of the marji' that he has taken this responsibility off your shoulders. See how we have all this backwards? I have to know how you spend my money. Baba, it's not your money. And then the Imam alayhi salam, he ends with a very important point. And this is where many people stop. وَذَلِكَ لَا يَكُونُ إِلَّا بَعْضَ فُقَهَاءِ الشِّيعَةِ لَا جَمِيعًا. These descriptions about who you should follow, it doesn't apply to all Shia scholars. Imam al-Askari is saying, some of them. Meaning, just because someone has a turban, just because someone has knowledge, it doesn't mean like sheep, you run after him. You have to wait. Does this faqih fulfill these other conditions? Is the piety there? Is going against the desires there? The Imams wanted us to follow scholars who have knowledge and who have taqwa. My dear brothers and sisters, Imam al-Askari alayhi salam truly guided the Shia community in a way that kept them together after his martyrdom. Gave them everything that they needed to stay on the straight path during the ghaibah. The narrations tell us that when the Imam alayhi salam was on his deathbed, after he had been poisoned by the Abbasid Caliph, There was a servant of the Imam, a companion of the Imam, and this is mentioned by Shaykh al-Saduq in his book, Ikmaluddin wa Tamamun Ni'mah. He says, a man by the name of Abu al-Adyan, he came to the Imam, and the Imam gave him some letters that he wanted him to deliver to Mada'in. People used to send letters to the Imam, questions, the Imam would respond. He says, I want you to go deliver these letters to the Shia of Mada'in and bring me the letters that they have. But before the man leaves, Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, he says to him, "O Abu al-Adyan, when you go to Mada'in and you return, you will return to Samirra in 15 days. When you return from your journey from Mada'in in 15 days, you will enter Samirra and you will hear the entire city wailing for me, crying out, Aywa Imama, wa Madluma." Abu al-Adyan says to the Imam, Yabna Rasulillah, after you, what will happen? Who will be our guide? Who should we turn to for guidance after you? The Imam alayhi salam, he says, the one who you will take guidance from after me is the one who will perform my ghusl. It is the one who will pray over my janazah. When you return from Mada'in, the one who asks you to give you the letters from Mada'in is the Imam after me. The narrations say that Abu al-Adyan, he goes to Mada'in. He delivers the letters of Imam al-Askari to the Shia of Mada'in. He retrieves the letters that they have for the Imam. He comes back to Samirra. When he enters Samirra, he feels that there's an atmosphere of dread. There is an atmosphere of sorrow. He hears the crying from the house of the Imam. Aywa Madluma wa Sayyida wa Imama. He says, I went into the house and I saw a young boy. They were preparing the body of the Imam for Salatul Mayyit. He says, as they were preparing the body of the Imam, people were giving their condolences to Ja'far, the brother of Imam al-Askari. People were confused about who the Imam would be after him. He says, as they prepared the body, it was the time of Salatul Mayyit. Ja'far stepped forward to pray on the body. Suddenly I saw a 5-year-old step forward and he turned to his uncle and said, Ya am ta'akhar fa ana ahaqqu bis salati ala abi. Oh, my uncle, step back because I have a greater right to pray over my father. He says, after the young boy finished his salah, he turned to me and he said, Oh, Abu al-Adyan, where are the letters from Mada'in? I knew that this was the Imam after Imam al-Askari. My dear brothers, Imam al-Askari, he died as a gharib in Samirra, away from Bani Hashim, away from his family in Medina. But brothers and sisters, who was more gharib than Abi Abdullah al-Husayn? Who was more gharib than Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam on the day of Ashura? Who was more gharib than that Hussein who was on the plains of Karbala? When Shimr ibn Dirjawshan was approaching Imam al-Hussein, Imam was so ghareeb, no one stood up to defend him. No one came forward to prevent Shimr. So much so that Sayyida Zainab, she comes out of her tent and she says to Umar bin Sa'ad, "Oh Umar bin Sa'ad, ayuqtalu Abu Abdullah wa anta tanzur." Are you just going to watch? Are you only going to stand there and watch when Abu Abdullah is slaughtered before your eyes? My dear brothers and sisters, when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was martyred, as you know, his body was left on the plains of Karbala for 3 days without burial. When Imam Zainul Abidin returned from Kufa and he helped with the burial of the bodies, do you know what Imam al-Askari wrote on the grave of Imam al-Hussein? Can your hearts bear the pain of what the Imam wrote on the grave of his father? After burying his father, Abu Abdullah, there are no tombstones. There's nothing. It's just a desolate land, an open desert. The only thing that the Imam has to write over the grave of Imam al-Hussein is his finger. He writes on the sand of Karbala. What does he write? He writes, "Hada qabrul Hussein." This is the grave of Hussein, الذي قتلوه عطشانا غريبا. This is the grave of Hussein, who was slaughtered thirsty and while he was gharib, while he was a stranger. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. صلوا على محمد وآله.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
يا حسين
يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين. कहते थे शाह ज़मा बाबा हसन अस्करी, कहते थे शाह ज़मा बाबा हसन अस्करी, हाय ये क्या हो गया बाबा हसन अस्करी। कहते शाह ज़मा
बाबा हसन अस्करी,
कहते थे शाह ज़मा बाबा हसन अस्करी। सूए जीना चल बसे कौन हमारा है अब, सूए जीना चल बसे कौन हमारा है अब, दिल हुआ टुकड़े मेरा बाबा हसन अस्करी। कहते थे शाह
ज़मा बाबा हसन अस्करी,
कहते थे
शाह ज़मा बाबा हसन अस्करी।
गौहर नायाब थे आप है बाबा मेरे, गौहर नायाब थे आप है बाबा मेरे, रोऊं न मैं क्यों भला बाबा हसन अस्करी। कहते थे शाह
ज़मा बाबा हसन अस्करी,
कहते थे शाह
ज़मा
बाबा
हसन अस्करी।
कौन था जालिम ये जिसने दिया ज़हर ये, कौन था जालिम ये जिसने दिया ज़हर ये, कर दिया बिन बाप का बाबा हसन अस्करी। कहते थे शाह
ज़मा बाबा हसन अस्करी,
कहते थे शाह ज़मा बाबा हसन अस्करी। रोता हूँ बाबा खड़ा दीजो तसल्ली जरा, रोता हूँ बाबा खड़ा दीजो तसल्ली जरा, कौन रहा अब मेरा बाबा हसन अस्करी। कहते थे शाह
ज़मा बाबा हसन अस्करी,
कहते थे शाह ज़मा बाबा हसन
अस्करी।
रोती है मादर खरी पीटती है करगरी, रोती है मादर खरी पीटती है हर गरी, हो गई तारीख जहां बाबा हसन अस्करी कहते थे शाहे
ज़मां बाबा हसन अस्करी
कहते
कहते
थे
थे
शाहे
शाहे ज़मां
बाबा
बाबा हसन अस्करी
आए ये क्या हो गया बाबा
बाबा
हसन
हसन अस्करी.
اللهم نهدى الفاتحة.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Ahsan. Thank you, Amin. We will come to the end of our program, inshallah. And just a quick reminder, our next program is going to be, inshallah, on Saturday. And Saturday we will be celebrating the Eid al-Zahra, inshallah. And our speaker for that night will be Sayyid Mahdi al-Qazwini. And the program, inshallah, will start before Maghrib. The program will begin at 5 p.m., inshallah. We will send out details for the program via email in the next day or so, inshallah. But we hope that everybody can join us in person at the center on Saturday, October 8th at 5 p.m., inshallah. We'll end the program with ziyarah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayka ya Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidati Nisa'i al-Alameen. Assalamu alayka ya Hasan al-Mujtaba. Assalamu ala al-Husayn. وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء. السلام عليك يا سلطان يا أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا. كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. أجر الله تعالى فرجك وسخر الله تعالى مخرجك وظهور العام جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Let's recite one Surah Fatiha to remember all of the marhumin that are part of our families. May Allah grant them all Jannah. May Allah give us the opportunity to do the ziyarah of Imam Hasan al-Askari and Lady Masuma, inshallah. And may Allah protect all of us. Surah Al-Mubarak al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. we'll inshallah see you at the program on Saturday at Husseiniya. Thank you.